What's going on, everybody? Alex here, Nickens Lawn and Landscape. Today is the day that I've been waiting for a long time, and it's a video a lot of you have been waiting for a long time. I've gotten a lot of requests on this, asking when it was gonna be, asking what was all done, yada yada yada. And I couldn't tell you guys, I couldn't spoil the surprise, so I had to keep it on the hush hush. But today's the day. Well, here she is, in all of her glory. What do you guys think? I really do think it turned out well. I like the way it looks. I like the way it drives. Could use some new tires probably, but it runs pretty good. It's gonna be a good truck for us, I think. So as a lot of you know from Instagram posts and previous YouTube videos, this truck has been a lot of work for us to get ready. I think August 14th was the day that I bought it, and I'm just now finishing it up. Today is February 6th, so it's been a while. We could have got it done a little bit quicker, but we took our time. We wanted to do everything ourselves, and this is what we got. So when we bought it, it had a flatbed on it, and that is not what we wanted. We wanted this truck to be a dump truck, or we wanted a Duramax dump truck. So buying it with the flatbed, we knew that we were gonna have to put a bed on it. And I ended up selling the flatbed right away, so that worked out good. Our plan was to buy a brand new bed, and that's what we tried to do. I tried ordering a Stihl bed. They're out of Michigan, but I went through a distributor in St. Louis. They said 6 weeks. So 5 weeks go by. I gave them a down payment, by the way. 5 weeks go by and I haven't heard anything, so I just give him a buzz to say, hey, you know, we still on for next week. Call, he answers. He says, oh yeah, by the way, it's gonna be another 10 to 12 weeks before your bed's ready. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That doesn't really work, dude. I told you, you know, I want this bed, I want it ready for winter, yada yada yada. So he basically says, sorry, you're SOL. So I was not happy with that whole deal. I got my down payment back, which was good, but then I was back to square one and I needed to find a bed. So I went through all my other options of buying new in the St. Louis area, and nothing was gonna work for me. I didn't really like any of the beds, to be honest. So it was time to search for a used bed. I found this beaut of a 1990 Chevy 3500 with a Stihl bed on it, which if you remember, that's what I wanted from the beginning. So the guy was asking $3 grand. It was pretty beat up, but what are you gonna do? I needed a bed. So, and this was 2 hours away from where we live, by the way, so we had to take a 2-hour trip. My brother and I drove over there, looked at it, basically said the truck's worth nothing, so we'd be paying $3 grand for the bed, and that didn't really settle well with us. We just came back home, we didn't buy the truck. Kept searching for about another week or so, didn't find anything really, and kind of said that's our only bet if we want anything anytime soon, unless we're just gonna sit here and wait around. And I didn't want to wait around anymore, so we drove 2 hours back there and bought that truck for $3 grand. I ended up selling the truck for $12.50, so I had $17.50 in the bed, and I was all right with that. Once we had the bed, we had to cut it off the other truck, obviously, and unwired from there. It wasn't too bad, took us a few hours, but it wasn't anything crazy. This truck had had at least 4 beds on it prior. There was a bunch of pieces still stuck on it, where they had cut off the old bed and not taken the bracket fully off and just left some of it on there. So there was a bunch of spots, we had to cut all that off. As you see, we painted this frame, got that all looking good, and when we did that, we did remove the rear fuel tank. There was a bunch of mud caked in between the tank and the cover, so we took that apart, cleaned all that out, and painted everything up and got it looking good. After we got the bed welded on, it was time to make a hitch, and luckily my brother is a good welder and we're decent fabricators, and we basically copied what we had on our old dump truck on this truck. So it's basically some C-channel and a couple different pieces of tube steel, and we bought the D-rings and the 2-inch receiver at a local camper and trailer supply place. So moving on from the hitch, we had some wiring to do, and that brought on all kinds of issues. So basically 3 things needed to be wired. We needed to wire the bed to the truck, we needed to wire the 7-pin for the trailer to the truck, and we need to wire the new taillights. After looking online for some schematics, we found what we needed and we got all that wired up. We had an issue though. We had no blinkers, no hazards, and no brake lights. After a very thorough investigation of trying to figure out what was going on, we found that we had a bad fuse box. We checked grounds, we were pulling up the carpet or the vinyl on the floor trying to find busted wires. I mean, we were searching this thing and it turned out it was the fuse box. If you would press the back side of the fuse box and the front side of the fuse box, so kind of sandwich it, you could get the blinkers to work. We had a bad fuse box. Not a big deal though. We contacted a GM parts distributor. It was 330 bucks, which kind of sucked, but what are you gonna do? Gotta have it. So once we got the fuse box in there, we had blinkers, we were all good, but we had no brake lights. Turns out we had to replace the lights. So these are the lights we ultimately had to go with, and basically they got a separate turn signal and flasher. Then they have a brake light and a running light, and then they have a reverse light. And separate wires to control every function, and that's what we needed. I explained that whole process and exactly what was going on in this video. I'll link right up here. We also had to wire the 7-pin trailer plug. So after we got the hitch and all the wiring taken care of, we started on the plow and the spreader. We've wired up a lot of these. I've always had Meyer plows, so I know how to wire them. I know how they work. It takes a few hours to install, but it's not too bad. So we got both of those wired up and put on. We had a little issue with the plow. We had to add some fluid to the pump and we had to mess with one of the solenoids, but we got all that taken care of, no problem. When we first went to install the plow, the battery didn't have top posts on it. I like to have those to be able to connect everything for the plow and the spreader. You can do it through the side post, but I don't prefer to do that, so we had to get a new battery. And this spreader is old, but it does the trick. Put a new motor assembly on it, new wire harness, new controller, works like brand new. And when I got this rig, it had a brush guard on it and it had running boards. I don't like either one of those, so those had to go. I put the running boards on Craigslist and I actually traded the brush guard for this stock bumper, so that worked out good. It was definitely a lot of work. I think it was worth it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I think it turned out pretty sweet, and this truck is gonna make us money for quite a few years.